Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I was 19 and I came to realise that destiny was fan-shaped. And you might wonder what that means. And I'm going forward before I go back to the beginning of my school days. And school days to me is a word that denotes the possibility of learning. And learning through whatever situation we find ourselves in, and learning from whomsoever we are in contact with. There is not one human being that doesn't have something to teach us. And so how did I arrive at the belief that destiny was fan-shaped? And it came something like this. I was born in a Sicilian family, and because we lived on a farm with grandparents and aunts and uncles, when I got to school, I didn't have a word of English. I could speak Sicilian beautifully, but English I had not one word. And so the first destiny is, there it is. And the school children that I met were those in my class. And I remember Miss Rogers, who taught us, and I also remember Mr. Woolley, who taught me some lessons. And then Dad was interned. And during the war, for 3 years, we never saw him. And when he came back, we moved to Cairns. Notice how suddenly I've lost. I haven't lost them at all, they're still here. But now there's a new group of people that I'm interacting with. And then I went to Central State, doesn't exist anymore, the Novotel is there. And there's a whole new group of people there. And then I went to St. Augustine's, a whole new group of people there. Notice how destiny is fan-shaped. In every situation, you find yourself with a whole new group of experiences. And those experiences are truly school days. In Sicilian, the word, or in Italian, the word destiny is destino, D-E-S-T-I-N-O, which is really very, very similar. And when I heard my parents and grandparents talking about destino, it seemed to suggest that whatever it was that happened to somebody was inevitable, because the word seemed to be so fixed. But I realized that destiny is not something that is inevitable. Destiny is about choices. Destiny is about the choices that I make. Destiny is about the choices that other people make. And so every time that there is a new destino, there are new possibilities of learning. There are new school days that begin. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, about Midjanu. Midjanu is a little outpost out from Tully. And then there's Faluga. And Faluga is where the school was. And Dad was a very creative guy. He had an Alsatian, big Alsatian. His name was Rex. And Dad decided that it was too much trouble to be working on the farm, taking his 5-year-old to school. So he thought that he'd make a harness for Rex, a cart for his son, and his son, and Rex would take his son to school each day in the cart. And that's what actually used to happen. And then when I got to school, I would stop at the baker shop, the Mazzottos, and they made wonderful sultana buns. Sultana buns to die for. And they literally believed in the baker's dozen. But before I got to school, I'd call it Mazzottos, and I would unharness the dog, put the harness away, put the cart away, and they allowed Rex to run around in their yard. And there I was, off to school. And one day, it wasn't cyclone season, but one day we had so much rain that the road that I took to go to school, which was via Midjanu and the back road, it was covered with water. So I didn't go to school. The next day, Mr. Woolley said to me, "Why weren't you at school yesterday?" I said, "Mr. Woolley, there was no way that I could get to school. because the road was covered with water. Mr. Woolley said, there is also another way of getting to school, through the main road. What a wonderful lesson. Always look for another way. Ladies and gentlemen, from Tully, when Dad came out for the internment camp, he was a farmer. He was on the cane growers executive. He was popular. He did wonderful things around the place. But in those days, if somebody had it in for you and said a bad word about you, you were carted off, and you didn't come back for 2 or 3 years. Granddad was also interned, and we were left on the farm with one uncle and women working the farm. So we came to Cairns, and Dad had learned to cut hair in the internment camp. And he came back, never came back to the farm at all. Straight up to Cairns, bought a barber shop, and some months later, Mum and I came up. Now, where do I go to school? I wanted to go to school to the convent, but somebody told Mum and Dad, misinformation was around then as well as it is today, someone told Mum and Dad that if you went to the convent, the nuns wouldn't let you go to the brothers. So, there was a friend of mine who went to Central State, and I thought, this is wonderful, there'll be somebody there that I know. Unfortunately, love's labour is often lost, because he was in the lower class to myself, and I hardly ever saw him. However, I had a wonderful time at Central State, and you remember number 96? Who was the leading lady in 96?
Jackie Wheeler.
No, it wasn't. Another lady.
Abigail.
Abigail, absolutely right. And at the 75th anniversary of the beginning of Central State, there I was sitting opposite Ron Davis and his wife, and there I was sitting next to Abigail. And I thought all my Christmas had come at once. So Central State doesn't exist anymore, no to tell us there. What did I learn there? I learned that misinformation is something that one shouldn't take any notice of. And so off to a new school, and there I met a mentor who changed my life in many different ways. A man by the name of Gildas, and what he taught me was about maturity. And he said on one occasion, he said, maturity is when the restrictions that used to come from the outside now come from the inside. Never forgotten. And I remember, Grandma used to say, eat your spaghetti. Granddad used to say, wash behind the ears. Mum would say, clean your teeth. But the time came that those things which I did because somebody told me to do it from the outside became part and parcel of what I did from the inside. Ladies and gentlemen, in actual fact, what I want to say this evening is that no matter how old we are, no matter in what circumstances we find ourselves, you and I, ladies and gentlemen, are part of a destiny where we are meeting new people every day, new people who can teach us something new people who can make a change in our life to make us better people than we were before. And rostrum, ladies and gentlemen, is one of those things that I'm still learning from today.